Good morning and welcome to this WIOA Wednesday webinar. My name is Kirsten Sheary with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Today's topic is workplace violence and active shooter training, keys to survival. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. As a reminder, all participants on the call are in listen-only mode. If you have questions as the webinar proceeds, please post your question in the question box. This box might also be labeled the comment or the chat box, and all of those boxes are synonymous. It's just a text box on your side panel, and it might be labeled something different. It might be labeled question, comment, or chat, depending on if you're accessing the webinar today from your cell phone, a tablet, or a computer. But again, all of those boxes are synonymous, so you can just type any questions, comments, or concerns in that box, and we will answer all questions at the end of the webinar when we do a Q&A. Another reminder that this webinar will be recorded. The presentation recording and any materials presented during today's meeting will be available on the icsps.illinoisstate.edu website and also on the Illinois WorkNet website within 48 hours. Tomorrow, each attendee will receive a follow-up email, which will include a survey asking you about today's webinar. Please provide feedback and any suggestions you have to help improve our upcoming webinars. Another reminder that if you find yourself having a faulty internet connection or audio connection and you would prefer to call in, you can do so by using your cell phone to call into this webinar, and that number is posted in the chat box to all of you. I posted it earlier before we got started, and it's also in your initial registration email that you received from our GoToWebinar platform. And with that, I'm going to do a couple of beginning polls that we like to do each Wednesday, and I will start those. They are interactive, so you should be able to click the poll. And the first question is, where is your local area at? We do apologize for the limited number of answers. We're only allowed to do 5 options for you to select, but if you'd like to be more specific, feel free to comment in the chat box to us about where you're joining us from today. And I'll give everyone a couple more seconds to answer that. Okay, so I did go ahead and share our results. It looks like we have good percentage of people joining us from the Chicago area today, and some from Northern Illinois, a good percentage from Central Illinois, and even a couple people statewide. So that's great. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. And then we just have one more poll this morning. We just want to know, which partner do you best represent? Again, we apologize for not having some specific options, but if you would like to, you can post in the chat box and go ahead and be more specific and tell us which partner you best represent today. I'll give everyone about 30 seconds to answer that as well. Okay, I went ahead and closed the poll, and it looks like we have a ton of people joining us from Title I today, which is awesome. And then quite a few people from other WIOA partners and stakeholders as well. So welcome everyone for joining us today. We thank you. And just one more quick thing, I did want to note that we did have some technical difficulties this morning and we were unable to do our live closed captioning like we typically do. But if you do need closed captioning, when we upload the video to our YouTube account, you will be able to have closed captioning accessing it through there as well. So we do apologize for that this morning. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our presenter for today, Haylie Polistina, and she is a trooper presenting for us today. So Haylie.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk about workplace violence and active shooter training. I am a trooper with the state police. I work out of District 8, that's in Metamora, and we cover 5-county area. I'm a safety education officer, so my primary job for the state police is to educate businesses, schools, and our community. So what is workplace violence? Workplace violence is any act or threat of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or other threatening, disruptive behavior that occurs at the worksite. So we have 3 categories, which would be threatening behavior, words of actual violence, or physical assault. This can vary. We mainly think of workplace violence as an active shooter situation, but it can be as simple as a threatening words or threatening language. So a workplace may be any location. Right now, a lot of us are working from home because of the pandemic. Work threats can happen anywhere. We see a lot of cyberbullying going on right now in the world. So workplace violence can happen anywhere that you're working. I'm going to start us off with a quick video. Hopefully this works for you guys.
What is your emergency? There's a guy over here, McMillan Bond. He just walked in with a gun. He's threatening some people. Warehouse. Oh, please, he just started shooting.
The shooter in an apparent murder-suicide at the Johnson Space Center had received a poor job review and feared being fired, according to police reports.
And the hostage negotiators established contact with the gunman.
It sounded like a firecracker. It was like pop, 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 and then everyone just started screaming and running.
It appeared a Miss Bonus was a catalyst for a gunman's rampage. I was sitting right there, and he just started firing.
Specific threats made from Mr. Harity to his direct manager or any of the other victims in the shootings.
God, why would somebody do this?
Now, members of the SWAT team have arrived here between 8:30 and 9 a.m., and hostage negotiators have established contact with the gunman.
We have the gunman in custody, and we have recovered a total of 12 semi-automatic weapons, along with 3 pistols, which we believe were used in the attacks.
It was kind of a shock. You know, he was just a quiet person, very quiet person.
All right, so it is a problem. OSHA's statistics from U.S. Department of Labor, it's the 3rd leading cause of fatal occupational injuries in the U.S. And here are some 7 tips to prevent workplace violence.
I've got to reschedule because of your screw-up. I have an appointment now, and I'm going in now.
Mr. Ward, I really can't let you.
Workplace violence is a serious safety issue. Some 2 million American workers are victims of workplace violence each year. It can surface in the form of verbal threats or even physical assaults. But no matter how workplace violence manifests itself, it is undoubtedly a growing concern for employers and employees alike. Here are 7 tips to prevent workplace violence. Assess your work environment. Critically examine all areas of your work environment, including parking lots, entryways, reception areas, work areas, and offices. Is the lighting adequate? Are there convenient escape routes? Do you have a method to summon assistance? Pay attention to the warning signs. Many people who become violent communicate their intentions in advance. Threats from customers, coworkers, or third parties should be reported immediately. Promote respect. The best way to prevent violence in the workplace is to foster a day-to-day attitude of respect and consideration in your work environment. Eliminate potential weapons. Take a mental inventory of objects available in your immediate work area that could be potential weapons. Remove or secure objects that could be thrown. Know your violence response procedures. Violence response procedures are simple plans designed to minimize injury during a violent incident. These procedures should include a plan to summon assistance and move people to a safe area. Trust your instincts. Don't ignore your internal warning system. If you sense impending danger, react accordingly. Use a team approach. If you are in a situation where hostility could occur, use the buddy system.
All right, so there's not one best way for civilians to address active violence threats, and there are no experts in this field. What we are using is lessons learned, techniques and practices from prior incidents, and just trying to evolve our model. So the best outcome for a civilian perspective will be a function of mindset, preparation, ability to act, and just luck. And oftentimes, law enforcement are not the first responders, it is the civilians that are on scene. So critical incidents, they occur every day of the week, can occur all hours, can occur at home, any place, impact large numbers of potential victims, may be man-made, naturally occurring, or by accident, and in most cases are survivable. So 68% of the time, the incidents are over in 5 minutes or less. 54% of the time, law enforcement is on scene within 10 minutes. That's why it's important that citizens know how to react first. They are usually short in duration and generally end in suicide by the perpetrator. Self-inflicted or assisted. Pathway to violence. We often wonder why these people, these perpetrators, they inflict violence. It first starts with a grievance. They have an issue with a spouse or a coworker, a boss. Then they get the idea in their head that they're going to invoke violence. The next part is probably takes up the most amount of time, the research and planning. And this is when everyone around them can be vigilant and be observant of that stage. Are they looking at maps of the building? Are they researching the area, taking surveillance? The next pathway is preparation. So are they getting weapons, tools? Then they breach the area, and finally they attack. So this is all connected. You have a subject who is in an environment, a hostile environment maybe, or a bad situation with another person, and then they target their violence on a specific individual or individuals. So are we predicting violence? No, we are just assessing the risk of a specific individual engaging in targeted violence with some defined point of time. It is not exact. So like predicting the weather, it is never accurate. We can just take the tools that we know, but it is unpredictable. So what are we assessing? Does the subject pose a threat of targeted violence in the context of motive, intent, and ability? So we need to take totality of the circumstances in content, context, and the circumstances. So Does this person exhibit violence, but he also has a motive? Does he also have the ability to invoke violence? Oftentimes we associate these individuals with mental illness, and while that is true, they are no more likely to be violent than a baseline public. That is, if they are not abusing drugs or alcohol, they are in a stable environment, they have insight to their condition, they are compliant with their medications. If all of these factors are not the case, then it increases substantially. So pre-incident indicators, he just snapped. We all know that TV show about a subject that committed murder, and they're like, okay, we don't know how this happened. He just snapped one day. Is that the case, or were there clues that we could have picked up on before this incident happened? Did they have a certain demeanor, behavior at work? Were they a frequent rule breaker or pushing the boundaries or limitations? So life stressors that can add to this situation, maybe a death in the family, marital issues, legal problems, finances, personal injury, were they fired recently, bullied at work, and things that you can look for, lack of sleep, are they gaining or losing weight, having health issues, or are they irritable, maybe not bathing or taking care of themselves, not performing at work like they usually do, lack of focus, and change in their relationships. So there's two ways to invoke or purposes of violence. Expressive, so someone that is very high in emotion, anger, and usually is a relationship between the victim and the offender. They are trying to get back at that specific person. And then there is instrumental, so they are using a tool to get what they want. I'm gonna bomb the second floor of this building if I don't get my job back or if I don't get my raise. They use dominance and control, and the victim is usually a stranger. So indicators of pending violence, verbal, so you can pick up on their words, their tone, context, demeanor, hesitation, thinking, or testing the boundaries. Indicators of pending violence, nonverbal. So clenched fist, wringing of their hands, they're squaring off to you, removing fragile items, so they're taking off their earrings, their watches, hesitation and thinking, they have a flushed or red face, clenched teeth, jaw, change in breathing rate and depth, grooming behaviors, they have a fixed stare, body shaking, or sometimes no indicators at all. So managing potential threats. There is the non-confrontational route. So you can not take any action at all. You can kind of stand by and wait and watch to see if something is going to happen. Kind of be an interviewer and gather information. Or you can confront them. They can be taken into custody, be charged criminally, or maybe get the mental health health treatment that they need. Preparation and situational awareness. So we want to make sure that we're prepared as possible. So in grade school, we would do fryer drills. We learn stop, drop, and roll. And when your body is constantly doing those drills, it knows what to do. That's the same kind of concept that you want to have for work, whether it's a fire drill, a tornado drill. When you are practicing those procedures, then you're going to know what to do in case of a situation like a fire, a bombing, an active shooter situation. So visualization, this is a very important tool that we can use. It is very powerful, and we've seen it used in the world of sports, psychology, and other areas. The body cannot go where the mind hasn't been. So if you take the time to sit down and think about your options when a situation arises, you will know what to do. So having that survival attitude and mindset, this is what we need to take on to survive these situations. I can and I will survive. So there's this saying that there's a very popular author said this, that there's 3 types of people. There are the sheep who carry on about life blissfully unaware of what's going on around them. And there are the wolves that eat, and they are predators, and they use their violence to get what they need. And then there are the sheepdogs that have that same ability to provoke violence, but they do it for good and to protect the sheep. You must decide now that you will be a survivor. So the disaster psychology, the survival arc, a very good book if you would like to read more about this. The Unthinkable, Who Survives When Disaster Strikes and Why by Amanda Ripley. This is a book that she wrote after 9/11 attacks. And what they found was that people who survived and made it out of the towers before they collapsed were able to make the decisions very quickly within the first 15 minutes to get on the stairs and exit the building. Those who stayed in the building were in a state of denial, and they could not believe what was happening to them. They couldn't work through the process. So the process is denial, deliberation, and decisive action. We don't want to be stuck in that first one. Everyone gets stuck in denial, but it's your ability to move past that and make that decisive action. So critical stress incident management starts well before the incident. We want to make sure that we're prepared. That's why you need an emergency action plan in your workplace, or a lot of times we're going to schools and we're doing active shooter drills with the children. So in case that happens, they're going to know what to do, and we will save lives. So common traits of survivor confidence. They treat trauma like art is in the eye of the beholder. They believe they can, and they influence the life events. So confidence is contagious. So if there's someone that is taking the lead on scene and trying to get out, it'll encourage others to do so as well. Courage and confidence. So it's not so much about remaining calm, it's about remaining rational. And that comes from having a response or responses available for crises at hand, and being able to apply those responses effectively. And courage is not the absence of fear, but it is learning to work through your fear. And like I said, confidence is contagious. So if you're on scene and you're taking charge, it's going to encourage others to get out of the burning building or move away from the active shooter. Human response to critical incident. So psychological responses and physiological responses, often known as fight or flight syndrome or fear-induced syndrome, survival stress reaction, and startle response reflex. So our body wants to go into those 3 modes of either your flight, or freeze. We want to be able to react. Situational awareness. This is very important. You can see there that this guy has no situational awareness and he's not aware what is behind him. So there is the color code, and I always try to stay in the orange. We never want to be in the white, which is oblivious, or the bottom, which is panic, which is supposed to be black. So we want to stay in that aware. And if the situation, if something seems out of the normal, you want to bump it up to an alert. And if an immediate threat is in your way, then you want to engage it. Most importantly, see something, say something. The people present are the first people that are going to save the day, the first people that are going to see something and report it. So report it through 911, or even your supervisor, or even tell someone else if you know you're hesitant about it. Just do something. You have the right to intervene and have a positive impact, and be a good observer. And so in these situations, it's important to know how to give a good description for law enforcement when we arrive to try to apprehend this person. So we need a good description of people, their vehicles, actions, which way they fled, so we know where to go, suspicious indicators, and maybe injuries. So how to describe someone. Usually it's head to toe, so by their sex, their race, their height, weight, build, hair, color of their hat, complexion, facial hair, eye color, clothing, and what type of weapons. This is really important. We need to know what type of weapons the offender has so we know what we need to bring. Emergency action plans reflects the best practices, so it really helps to practice and know your plan. And it is location specific, and it is a right now model, so it should be ever changing depending on what the situation arises. So something just as simple as this. So you have your primary escape routes in the red, but if those areas were blocked off, then you need a secondary escape plan. So what is an active shooter? Active shooter is an individual aggressively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people. The situation usually occurs rapidly and without warning. Shooter's objective may be specific target, such as an estranged spouse, former boss, or coworkers, and most end in 5 to 15 minutes. So arrival of law enforcement may have little effect on the outcome. Individuals need to prepare physically and mentally to respond to an active shooter incident.
I'm on it.
All right, so I have this little video about situational awareness. Here, I'm gonna play it for you.
Orange shirts get subs. Go. Seven people in orange shirts got subs. But what else did you see? Did you notice the ice cream truck change to a pizza truck? Did you notice the glasses? What about the man leaving the suspicious package next to the truck? Your next challenge, be aware of your surroundings. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
All right, so hopefully you guys picked up on some of that. I think I missed a couple when I watched this video. But just be situationally aware. I know a lot of times you see people just with their head in their phone, just staring at their text messages, walking down the street. They're obviously not situationally aware and ready if someone were to attack them. That kind of example like that. So some troubling statistics. 98% of active shooter incidents are committed by a single attacker. 96% of active shooters are male. 78% of active shooter incidents, there's a connection between the shooter and at least one of their victims, whether it be a boss, a coworker, family member. 50% or 55% occur in commercial settings such as an office, and 40% of the incidents end with the shooter committing suicide. So recent workplace shootings, I did not add the shooting that just occurred in Springfield at Bunn. I don't know if you heard about that in the news, but similar type of situation, single attacker, he came in through the front door, knew his victims, and it ended with him committing suicide. We see that quite often. This happened last year in February in Aurora at Henry Pratt, 5 dead, 6 wounded, and a disgruntled employee facing termination. You can read that quote below here. And then in May 31st of last year, Virginia Beach, 12 dead, 4 wounded, also a disgruntled employee. And people said that he seemed normal hours before the shooting. So that just goes to show you there might be indicators, there might not. And here is a video of the Aurora shooting, and the response was really great for this situation.
For the first time, we were hearing from officers inside the Aurora plant, where a man opened fire as he was being terminated.
WGN's Tanya Francisco was here with that. Tanya?
Yeah, the Aurora Police Department released those audio tapes today on their Facebook page. The audio from the officers inside the plant is about an hour. There's another nearly 10 minutes of 911 calls from inside the plant. They were also released. Now, while it's riveting to listen as the first officers arrive on the scene up until the gunman Gary Martin is taken down, I want to warn you, it may be disturbing to some.
Got an active shooter, 641 Archer Avenue.
The first of several 911 calls from employees inside Henry Pratt were the first sources of information.
It's an employee that's getting terminated. His name is Jerry Martin.
Minutes later, the first Aurora police officers to arrive on the scene confirmed the worst case scenario.
We do not have an eye sight on him. We do not have a sight on it. No sight on him. Get the shields out. Get the shields out.
I got 4 victims upstairs in one room. 3 impaired disease.
4 victims upstairs. 10-4.
Oh, but there's another one in a bag just to the north. He's not moving.
The officers appear to be out of breath as they make their way through the building.
We got multiple shots fired.
Josh 14, by 14. Johnson, he just said it's the gun that says Pratt. That's why he's shooting at us. The broken gun is window.
What floor is it on? The second or the first?
First floor.
I've been shot.
Within minutes, the first officer is shot.
Okay, are you shot?
Negative. Stairwell. North side.
A total of 5 officers would end up being hit during the incident. Today, the Aurora Police Department identified them as Adam Miller, Marco Gomez, John Sobolski, James Zagar, Reynaldo Rivera, and Diego Avila. A call would go out for assistance from other nearby police departments as the search continued.
He was over where I'm at. That's why I need to get out of here. I've got windows all around me. I need to move, but I can't. I have no protection, no shield. If you could bring that Bearcat over, I'm pleading with you. I've got a civilian out here.
A Bearcat eventually breached that door, followed by several teams of officers, all trying to locate the shooter, Gary Martin, while protecting more than 20 employees inside.
All right, my guy says here he did empty his gun, but then he was reloaded, possibly a lot of ammo. Did you see him reloading? Yes, my guy here that was standing there, I saw him reloading. Confirming only pistol? Yeah. That's what he says, sole individual, only a pistol.
About 55 minutes into the search, flashbang grenades were deployed, and then this.
Contact me, we're moving forward. We got visual. Suspect down. Suspect's down.
Now, Aurora police say the decision to release this audio was not made carelessly, but as a matter of public interest and their commitment to transparency. They added they felt the community had a right to hear the courageous souls who helped bring their horrible tragedy to a swift conclusion. We'll have more on those audio tapes coming up at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Preparation. Don't ever assume that it won't happen to you. Have a policy and escape plan to discuss and sign off on. Know your exact workplace address. If you're the person that's calling 911, you're going to want to tell law enforcement how to get there, or EMS how to get there. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Report blocked exits, broken locks, and unlit areas. Know at least 2 exits for any facility you visit or work in. Work as a team to pre-plan these type of incidents. So lockdown, this was something that was implemented in the 70s in California they were having a lot of drive-by shootings. So this was when they had an open campus style with open windows. So people would drive by the schools and shoot in the windows. So they taught kids to have a lockdown method. So they would sit below the windows and huddle together so they were not in the view of the windows and they would not be shot. Today we're seeing people making entry into the building, so this is not the best case scenario. A lockdown is a process to secure an area from a threat. The lockdown is announced. All exterior doors are secure and checkpoints are established. The cease of normal operations is clear in all hallways. Movement of those inside is restricted and visitors are prevented from entering. Shelter in place until directed otherwise. And law enforcement should call to assist. Like I said, this is not something that we typically use in all situations, especially active shooter situations. Indicators of potential violence, we talked about this before. Look for increased drug and alcohol use, unexplained absenteeism, decreased appearance and hygiene, depression, withdrawal, policy violations, unstable emotional responses, explosive, unprovoked outbursts, suicidal comments, paranoid type behavior, increased talk of problems, financial issues, empathy with individuals who commit violent acts, and increased interest in firearms or weapons. I'll play this video for you guys.
I got some news today from the radio man. Spoke the word somber and as softly as he can. The world stood still and the sky opened up. I made my way, fill up my coffee cup. Then it occurred to me as the daylight sky shone blue. Today's the day that Johnny met June. He waited a while, he knew that it would. He was gonna hang around here for as long as he could. The days went by, and hours had passed. He was never sure just how long he would last. But there's not much love in a lonely room. Today's the day that Johnny met you.
Good summer.
It's you. Hey, you missed your course.
No way.
This is the guy that I was running to in the library.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like right on desks.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Down the star, this place that feels it's a burning thing. Oh, how I still love to hear you sing. Oh, and everything we've heard about him, all is true. Today's the day that Johnny met you. Today's the day that Johnny met you.
So the model that we use is the run, hide, fight method. So the FBI model. We used to use Alice, but this is just more simplified version and it's easy to remember. This is not a linear model. It does not have to go in order. You don't have to run, then hide, then fight. It is for situational basis. So first, you would run. Use an escape plan. Get out first sign of danger. You want to leave all your belongings behind and take others with you if possible. If you're not able to take someone that's injured or wounded, you're going to have to leave them. It's a hard fact to bear, but that's what you have to do. Try to prevent others from entering. Keep your hands visible when exiting the building. And call 911 when it's safe to do so. When you're exiting the building, please follow orders of law enforcement. They may be yelling commands, telling you to keep your hands up. We, at that point, do not know who the offender is. Remember, don't get on your phone and start calling 911 until you're out of the building. You're trying to escape, not draw attention to yourself at this point. Second option is hide. So find a place to hide where the shooter is less likely to find you. You can plan this out ahead of time in your workplace. You can look around you, look at your floor plans and see where's a good place in case of emergency to hide. You want to stay out of the shooter's view. Lock the door and barricade with heavy furniture if possible. So we found in some of these school shootings that the teachers that barricaded their doors and made it hard for the shooter to enter, he just passed on by that door. The shooter's in and out within 5 minutes. So the more time that you buy yourself, the more likely you'll survive. Hide behind heavy objects, desks, file cabinets, etc. Remain quiet. Silence your cell phone and ringer. You don't want to add attention to yourself when you're hiding. And don't call 911 until it's safe to do so. And the last resort, if you have to save your life, you're going to have to fight. No one wants to think about violence, but if someone's trying to inflict violence on you, then you're going to have to be violent. You're going to have to act as aggressively as possible. An attack by a group is more effective than a single person. And in these statistics, it's shown that it's usually one person that's doing the attacking. Improvise weapons. Use things in the workplace like a chair, a fire extinguisher, laptop, paperweights, sharp objects. Throw things. Disorient the shooter. It's a lot harder to shoot at a target if there's loud noises and things flying from all over. And commit to your actions. So here's an example of the shooting that happened in France. These are 3 Americans that were aboard the plane. There was a shooter that came on with a rifle, and they disarmed him and apprehended him until law enforcement could get there and take over. 2 of them were severely injured, but they saved lots of lives that day. Oh, I don't know what just happened.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire,
Try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
All right, if you reach 911 before law enforcement arrives, provide them with information, if known, the exact address of the incident, number of shooters, descriptions and their location, number of weapons seen, number and location of potential victims, and things that you heard that might be important. So when law enforcement arrives, they will enter immediately, possibly in teams, maybe in standard uniforms or SWAT-like attire. They may be armed with rifles or shotguns. Understand that the rescue of the wounded will not occur until the scene is secure. I know it's hard for us to do, but when we enter, our first priority is not to render aid to people that are hurt. We have to get the offender and we have to stop the shooter from hurting anyone else. So it's very important that you know that and realize that we have to do that first. So listen closely and follow orders. They usually don't know what the shooter looks like. We have no idea at that point. So prepare for us to shout orders, pushing people to the ground, and keep your hands empty in plain sight. If you follow their orders and expect to be taken to a safe location and held there for identification and briefing. So we're treating it like a crime scene at that point. We have to make sure that everybody from the scene has been cleared until we can let people go. So follow up by management and others. So when safe, perform an accountability check of all employees to determine if anyone is missing or potentially injured. You want to inform law enforcement if any person is unaccounted for. Determine a means for those who are safe to notify their families. Address notification to families of casualties, coordinate this with law enforcement, and provide for physical and psychological care for all involved. And I'm sure there's resources that you guys have with your workplaces. So never forget, your goal is to return home in the same condition that you arrived in and to stay alive. Response to an active shooter, you want to stay calm, stay safe, stay alive, and remember the 3-point model of run, hide, fight. Gunshot survivability, you should forget what you've seen on TV. Very few gunshots result in immediate death and collapse. There are many cases where the victim has been shot multiple times and are able to fight back and survive. If you arrive at the hospital with a heartbeat, there's approximately a 90% or better chance that you will survive. Here's some additional resources. If you guys would like some more knowledge on this, I had to go kind of quick because I had a lot of topics to talk about. But here's some more resources, and I can give you also some more information if you'd like to contact me. Here is my address, my work address, my cell phone, and my email. Feel free to contact me anytime. And it is just about 4:11, and I'll let you finish up.
Okay. We are going to do a quick Q&A if you don't mind, Haylie. So if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and type that in the question box, and then we will address those. So we'll give everyone a minute or two to go ahead and type any questions they might have. And then a couple things is that I did want to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded, and the slides and the recording of the webinar will be available within 48 hours on our website and then on the Illinois WorkNet website as well. If you have any questions, and Haylie, could you actually put your slide back up that has your information on it?
Yeah, I was trying to. I don't like whenever that's up, it's hard to hold on.
If you do have any questions and you aren't able to contact Trooper Haylie, you can email us at icsps.ilstu.edu. There we go. So there's our information if you do have any follow-up questions. And then again, tomorrow morning, you will receive a follow-up survey. If you would be so kind to give us some feedback information about everything, that would be great. I don't see any questions coming through, but we did have a good compliment for you, Haylie. Someone, Brenda Hutchinson, said, just to compliment, this was an awesome training, very much needed. Thank you so much. We did have one question. I am a receptionist in a large open area with really nowhere to hide, only one way out from behind my reception desk. What are my options, or maybe some suggestions you might have for her?
I would say, I don't know your floor plan, but I would kind of talk to your work and try to set up a plan and practice that. Again, you can always use objects around you, or if your desk, if you're able to hide behind objects, or if there is another escape route, I would try escaping. If that sounds good to you.
Okay, great. I don't see any other questions coming through. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, if you have follow-up questions, please feel free to contact Trooper Haylie Polistina, or you can contact us. And then Haylie, did you have any final thoughts or anything?
Nope, just thank you all for listening, and hopefully you guys will implement some action plans in your workplace.
All right, awesome. Thank you everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.